Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode here of the Beef Up Front podcast on Pick Swap Media. This is your host, Ryan Coyle, back with another episode today, previewing the college basketball season. Today, we're going to be breaking down my top 10 list of returning players to the college basketball game this upcoming year. Did my freshman episode the other day. Today, we're going to be getting into the top 10 returners. So, some of the key essential info that you need headed into the college basketball season. So just like the freshman episode, we're going to go 10-1, breaking down my top 10 returning guys. This was a really hard list to make. There's 20 to 25 names that came to mind. I wrote them all down, and then I kind of just weeded them out to the top 10. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Number 10 on my list, we're going to go with Tiger Campbell, point guard at UCLA. Just the ultimate coach on the floor, really lives up to that point guard coach on the floor billing. The best pure point guard, I think, in terms of running a team in the country and being like the main overall distributor, that coach on the floor. I've said that a few times already, but he's that guy who's just going to get UCLA into their sets, run the show out on the floor, and just be a really high-level distributor. He's the key cog, I think, for a potential Final Four team here with UCLA. Enters his senior season as one of the more experienced players in the entire country as well. Last year, his assist-to-turnover ratio was a whopping 3-1. I'm pretty sure that was the best in the country last year, if not one of the top. He's been at least 2-1. That's what kind of the goal is for the point guard, 2-1 in his 3 years at UCLA. And he really improved his shot from the perimeter last season, shooting 41% from three. If he's able to do that again with his experience, UCLA should have a really nice year. He's a pesky on-ball defender as well. And just he's not one of those guys who's going to put up 40 points a game, 12 assists. He's not putting up crazy numbers, but just for you basketball junkies, guys who really understand the game, you just know he plays it the right way, and that's why he comes in at number 10 on my list. Number 9, we're going to go with Trayce Jackson-Davies. Forward center, just the main front court piece for Indiana, the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. The key force, I think, for this Indiana team that finally got over the hump last year, made the tournament. They won their first 4 game over Wyoming, but then they got blown out by St. Mary's. But still, that was progress getting back to the big dance last year. This team has expectations to be like a Sweet 16, Elite 8 type team. If all shakes right, maybe crack the Final Four. Over his last 2 seasons, Trayce Jackson-Davies has averaged 18.7 points and 8.5 rebounds per game, making him almost a double-double threat every single night. He's really efficient too, and he knows his game, and he does most of his work in an efficient manner around the hoop. He shot over 50% each season, including 59% last year. He's making nearly 60% of his shots. He's just improved that number year after year. Has not made a 3, though, in his college career. I'm intrigued to see if he worked on his range this offseason, because that was one of the main reasons I think he came back for another year of school, to show NBA scouts that he can do more than just damage outside the paint. So let's see if he's able to showcase that range a little bit more and step out and make defenses respect him, open up the paint more for some of these good guards they have. Very good shot blocker too, averaged 2.3 per game last year. Like I said, was voted the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. He comes in at number 9 on our list. Number 8 on the list, we're going to go with Caleb Love, guard out of UNC. Personally, I might have him a little bit higher than some other people's top 10 returning players list, but he became my favorite player to watch over the second half of last season, and that's when UNC really began to take off. He averaged 15.9 points per game last year and shot 36% from deep and a really good 86% from the line, which kind of gives me hope that he can maybe get that 3-point number up to around 40% this year. With a 6'4" frame, a pretty good build, he's able to hurt you in a few different ways. Over the last 13 games of the year where they really took off down the stretch, he averaged nearly 18 points per game, and he had multiple 20-point outings. A microwave scorer, and when he gets hot, he is super exciting to watch. He can hit shots from all over the floor. Expect him to be the main offensive weapon this year on the perimeter for a really good UNC team. They have Armando Bacot as well, which I'll be talking about shortly, to spoil a little another spot on this list, but Caleb Love, I think, is what really makes them go. And when he's able to hit shots and hit them from deep on the perimeter, it makes UNC the best team in the country, in my opinion. Number 7 on the list, we're going to go with Hunter Dickinson, center out of Michigan. Personally, not the biggest fan of him. I think sometimes he gets a little bit overhyped, but and he's a guy that I don't think is going to be a good NBA player. That's why I'm glad he continues to come back to college. But you just can't deny his consistent production. And just the fact overall that he deserves a spot on this list. It's kind of great, though, to see with NIL and players getting money now in college, players finding a way to make some money and return to school. Hunter Dickinson, like Jackson Davies from last year, like I was just talking about Indiana, probably was like around like a second-round pick if scouts even see them at that. But they're really good college players, and they can stick around here, dominate, potentially go to the Final Four, win a national title, and make some pretty good money, making over like $1 or $2 million a year. So that is kind of what Dickinson is shaping up to do in year 3, coming off a season where he averaged 18.6 points per game, 8.6 rebounds per game, very identical numbers to Trayce Jackson-Davies. Another double-double threat each and every night in the Big Ten. His left-handed skill set, I think, makes him a difficult cover opposed to most other big men who are righty. It's just a unique thing that kind of, when they talk about in sports all the time, it's just something you can't emulate in practice. You're guarding guys going right all the time in practice, and you get a guy with as good a skill set as him, good a size as him, and then make it left-handed. It's just a tougher cover, I think, each and every night. Also showed the ability, unlike Jackson-Davies, to step out and shoot it a bit last year. Let's see if he can build on that, but he's a guy capable of going for 30 and 10 anytime he steps out on the floor, no matter who the competition is. A lot of big guys on this list. Number 6 is another big guy. I might have him a little bit higher than some other people as well, but I think he's going to dominate this year, and that's Adoma Sonogo, center for UConn. But being like the Big East kind of fan that I am, being a Villanova fan, having watched so much of them over the years and just really being entrenched in the Big East, I watch a lot of UConn as well. I've seen how dominant he can be when he's at his best. Another player, yet again, who nearly averaged a double-double last year, 14.8 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game. Super efficient as well. He shot 50% from the floor in both his freshman and sophomore seasons as he enters his junior year here. Doubled his points per game from freshman to sophomore year. And with a bigger role now with RJ Coyle, Tyrese Martin gone, some of those main scoring options, I think this team is going to run through him. And as good as he plays is as good as UConn will play this year. So he's my pick for Big East Player of the Year, and the challenge for some of these other guys who I haven't even talked about yet, but challenge them for the best overall big in the country this year. Number 5 on the list, we're going to go with Marcus Sasser, guard out of Houston. Sasser might be the player on this list that the college basketball like casual fan, the person who's not really into the season that much until later, February, March, might not be that familiar with, just due to him playing in the AAC at Houston. And last season, he only played in 12 games due to injury, so that doesn't really help the cause. But I think he's going to go punch for punch with Tiger Campbell for the best overall guard in college hoops this year. Before his injury last season, he was on a tear, averaging 17.7 a game. He was also shooting a blistering 43.3% from downtown. Not quite the overall distributor and like ultimate point guard that Campbell is. He plays more of like the off guard, but he's electric with the ball in his hands, and he can light up the scoreboard. He's a guy who is going to be bringing the ball up a lot still, just because of his fact that he can just create and for others and as well as himself by just bringing the ball up the floor. They don't even have to run sets for him sometimes, just because he's so good off the dribble. He dropped 25 on number 9 Alabama last year in an 83-82 loss back in December before his injury. Just goes to show you what he can do against a high-level competition. Houston comes into this year with Final Four expectations, and Sasser is going to be the one to take them where they want to go. So watch out for Marcus Sasser. He might not get the most national spotlight, national attention due to playing in the AAC, but still, I think he's in for a really big year. That's why he comes in at number 5 on my list. Number 4, we're going to go with Jaime Jaquez, forward out of UCLA, second UCLA guy on this list. He's a guy who it feels like he's like on that Perry Ellis path where he's been in college forever. And personally, I feel like I like it because he seems to be another one of these borderline NBA guys that are staying in college, and the game definitely benefits from that. Like I was saying with the other guys, Dickinson, Jackson Davies, from that NIL purposes. Wasn't fully healthy last year, battling multiple lower body injuries. I remember they kept him out of a bunch of games, but his 6'7" like frame really allows him to beat teams in multiple ways because he's a 3-level scorer in my eyes, and he's a offensive mismatch. He can do a lot of work on the post, but you're not going to put a big guy on him because he's going to be able to exploit them on the perimeter. And you can't put a guard on him because then he's going to take him in the post or in that mid-range area. Only a 33% shooter in his career from deep, which isn't great, but he can make open shots on the perimeter. You do have to go out there and respect them. Really effective mid-range type guy, though, and a really good rebounder. He's too good to be classified as like a glue guy. He's too talented, offensively skilled, but he really does everything I help to UCLA. I think that helps UCLA win, and he has a real chance to be an All-American this year. Wouldn't surprise me if he's on this first team. Number 3 on my list, I'm going to go with Drew Timme, center out of Gonzaga. Another one where it's like, wow, he's been here forever. It seems like some hate him because of his antics. He's kind of a trash talker, a little flamboyant, and with his big mustache and everything. But he's one of the guys that makes college basketball great because just he plays with that raw emotion and love of the game. And playing for a high-level program like Gonzaga, it's cool to see guys really just care that much about the program and finding ways to stick around year after year. Enters his senior season looking for that national title, though, under his belt. And he should actually have like a better year this year, I think, without Chet Holmgren in the front court as well, competing for touches. He's averaged north of 18 points per game and 6.5 rebounds per game each of the last 2 years. Really efficient guy as well, having never shot below 58% from the field in his 3 seasons. That's pretty insane. Just really good technical post moves, super efficient, like I mentioned, and just such like a throwback player. He should dominate the West Coast Conference yet again. Another Conference Player of the Year award coming his way, and potentially the National Player of the Year. So my top 3 guys are all big men. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the guys on this list are big men. That just kind of goes to show you how good that they are in college basketball right now. And a lot of them are not guys that we'll see, play high-level basketball in the NBA, I think. They're kind of dominance of basketball kind of will end at the college level, but it's really cool to see it. And as a college basketball fan, good for the game. Number 2 on my list, Armando Bacot, center out of UNC. Really wanted to put him at number 1, but couldn't do it with the National Player of the Year returning. A bit of a spoiler there, but Bacot averaged 16.3 points and 13.1 rebounds per game last year, which led the ACC. His 13.1 rebounds per game were good enough for 3rd in the nation. He's just a mountain of a man. He's so big. It's just hard to match up with a body like that each and every night. I think if he didn't suffer that ankle injury down the stretch, they might have knocked off Kansas in the title game. But after shooting 46.9% from the field during his freshman year, he has averaged a field goal percentage of 59.8% these last 2 seasons combined. So nearly 60%, another super efficient big man. His rebound numbers also ballooned from 7.8 per game during his sophomore year to 13.1 per game last year. Great on the offensive glass as well, an elite offensive rebounder, and just really knows how to use his body and his frame to his advantage. He's my pick for Player of the Year in the ACC, and I think he's going to challenge Oscar Tshiebwe, who's at number 1 for the National Player of the Year. You had to put him at number 1, the returning center from Kentucky. He won every major award last season, and being the National Player of the Year, he opted to return to Kentucky. It was kind of to some surprise after they fell to St. Peter's. I think in that 15-2 upset, it was kind of one of those things you don't want to go out on that note. He wanted to come back and lead Kentucky to a national title. He averaged 17.4 points and 15.1 rebounds per game last year, which was the best in the country. Set a Kentucky single-season record with 28 double-doubles, multiple 20-rebound games. I think he might have cracked double digits there. Moves really well at his size, plays with a great motor, always playing hard. Not a threat at all outside on the perimeter, but he doesn't need to with the intensity he plays with down low, and the way he runs the floor is really impressive too. I think of all the big men on this list, he's the most physically intimidating and like the best overall shape. Like Bacot's a huge guy. Hunter Dickinson's a huge guy, but Tshiebwe is just completely built, completely jacked up, and has great height as well to go with it. It would be intimidating to play against a guy at his size. And he plays with a pass-first point guard like Severi Wheeler, which does a lot of good for him as well. I expect his production to go down a little bit just because last year's numbers are going to be so hard to replicate, and Kentucky yet again bringing in another loaded recruiting class. But another huge season should be incoming, maybe averaging like 16 points, 12 rebounds, something in that range. That'll still land him probably on like a first-team All-American type list. So that'll do it for my top 10 returning guys in college basketball this year. Run back through them real quick. Tiger Campbell, Trace Jackson Davies, Caleb Love, Hunter Dickinson, Adoma Sonogo, Marcus Sasser, Jaime Jaquez, Drew Timme, Armando Bacot, and Oscar Tshiebwe. With so many big men on this list, I'm interested to see how by the end of the season, like all the All-American teams work out. And if maybe they throw 5 big men on there or 4 big men in one guard, it would be kind of cool to see all that shake out. But really excited. Basketball season right around the corner here for college. But that'll do it for this episode of Beef Up Front. We have a few more season previews for some conferences coming up. Make sure to stay tuned. Then we'll be getting into some game previews as well as the season gets kicking off. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and we will talk soon.